You're making a huge mistake. My mother's voice crackled through the phone, dripping with that familiar disappointment. Your brother needs you, and this is how you repay our family. I sat in my garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, feeling strangely calm despite the bomb they just dropped. My name is Olivia, and at 32, I was about to be disowned for refusing to give my kidney to my younger brother Marcus. We decided to remove you from the will, my father chimed in on speakerphone. Everything will go to Marcus. He deserves it after what you're putting him through. Perfect, I replied, my voice steady. Is that all? Their silence spoke volumes. They'd expected tears, pleading, maybe even immediate surrender to their demands. Instead, they got acceptance they didn't understand. Perfect, my mother finally sputtered. That's all you have to say. Your brother could die. I looked at the medical records spread across my patio table, not Marcus's, but my daughter Sophie's. The same daughter they'd conveniently forgotten about when making their demands. The same little girl who might need her mother's kidney in the future due to her genetic condition. Marcus has other options, I said calmly. He's on the donor list, and there are other family members who could donate. You both could get tested, for instance. We're too old, my father protested. Besides, you're the perfect match. This is your duty as his sister. Duty. That word had been thrown at me my entire life. It was my duty to give up my college fund when Marcus needed rehab money. My duty to postpone my wedding when he relapsed. My duty to loan him money he never repaid. And now, my duty to risk my daughter's future to save him from the consequences of his own choices. I have to think about Sophie, I reminded them. Oh please, my mother scoffed. Sophie is fine. You're just being dramatic as usual. Using your daughter as an excuse is a new low, even for you. I felt a familiar ache in my chest, but pushed it aside. They'd never understood, or tried to understand, Sophie's condition. They'd dismissed every doctor's appointment, every late-night hospital visit, every worry that kept me awake. In their eyes, Marcus's needs would always come first. The decision is made, my father declared. We're meeting with our lawyer next week. Unless you change your mind about the kidney, you're out of the will. What they didn't know, what they'd never bothered to ask, was that their threats were meaningless. 6 months ago, I'd received a call from my grandmother's lawyer. Gran had passed away quietly in her sleep, leaving me a separate inheritance that my parents knew nothing about. You were always her favorite, the lawyer had explained. She saw how they treated you, how they always put Marcus first. She wanted to make sure you and Sophie would be taken care of. The inheritance wasn't just money. It was properties, investments, and most importantly, controlling interest in a family company, the same company my parents thought they still fully owned. Gran had quietly transferred her shares to me years ago, keeping the paperwork hidden until after her death. Your parents will try to use money to control you, she'd written in her final letter to me. Don't let them, you're stronger than they know. As my parents continued their tirade about family duty and obligation, I glanced through my kitchen window where Sophie was doing her homework. My beautiful, resilient 9-year-old who never complained about her condition or the countless medical procedures she'd endured. She was the reason I finally found the strength to stand up to them. I have to go, I interrupted their lecture. Sophie needs help with her homework. This conversation isn't over, my mother warned. Actually it is, I replied. Good luck with the will. I hung up before they could respond, knowing the storm that was coming. They'd call my siblings, rally the extended family, maybe even try to turn Sophie's father, my ex-husband, against me. But for the first time in my life, I felt completely at peace with my decision. My phone immediately lit up with texts from my sister Amanda. How could you do this to Marcus? Mom and Dad are furious. You need to fix this. I silenced my phone and went inside. Sophie looked up from her math homework, her face brightening. Can we have pizza tonight? Mom. Of course, sweetheart. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. How about we eat in the garden? It's a beautiful evening. As we sat outside later, enjoying our pizza and watching the stars appear, I thought about the changes coming our way. My parents had no idea that their attempt to control me would backfire spectacularly. They didn't know about Gran's inheritance, about the power she'd given me, or about the plans I'd already set in motion. Soon, very soon, they would learn that their perfect son wasn't the only one with options. The fallout was swift and exactly as I'd expected. By morning, my social media was flooded with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, all suddenly concerned about my selfish decision. Marcus had posted a lengthy status about being betrayed by his own blood, carefully crafting himself as the victim, a role he perfected over the years. I was in my office reviewing some documents from Grand's lawyer when Amanda showed up unannounced, barging in with her usual dramatic flair. "You have to fix this," she demanded, dropping into the chair across from my desk. "Marcus is getting worse, and Mom hasn't stopped crying since yesterday." I looked at my sister, taking in her designer outfit and perfectly manicured nails, all funded by our parents' constant support. "Have you gotten tested to be a donor?" I asked calmly. She flushed, looking away. "You know I can't. I'm trying to get pregnant. And I have a daughter who might need my kidney in the future," I replied. "Why is my reason less valid than yours?" "That's different. Sophie might never need it, but Marcus needs it now." I pulled out Sophie's medical file and slid it across the desk. "Read it," I said. "Actually rate it, Amanda." Not the dismissive glance Mom and Dad always give it. She hesitated but picked up the file. I watched her expression change as she read through the doctor's reports, the projected outcomes, the potential complications. For the first time, I saw a crack in her certainty. I didn't know it was this serious," she finally admitted. "No one in this family ever bothered to know," I said quietly, just like no one bothered to ask why Marcus needs a kidney in the first place. Amanda shifted uncomfortably. We both knew the answer. Years of drug abuse had taken their toll on Marcus's body, but our parents had always made excuses, found ways to blame others, or simply threw money at the problem. "Mom and Dad are meeting with their lawyer tomorrow," she said, changing the subject. "They're really going through with removing you from the will." I smiled, thinking about the meeting I had scheduled with the company board next week. "They can do whatever they want with their personal assets," I replied, "but they might want to hold off on making any big decisions." "What does that mean?" "You'll find out soon enough." After Amanda left, I called Sophie's school to check on her. She'd been having a good day, the nurse reported, no issues with her medication. I felt that familiar mix of relief and worry that had become part of my daily life since her diagnosis. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Hope you're happy. Mom's a mess because of you. I always knew you were jealous of me." I didn't bother responding. Instead, I opened my email and confirmed my appointment with the board members. Most of them had worked with Gran for years and respected her judgment. They'd been surprised but supportive when I contacted them about taking over her position. That evening, my parents' lawyer called. "Olivia, your parents want me to send over some documents for you to sign, relinquishing your claim to any family assets." "I won't be signing anything," I replied, "and you might want to advise them to check the company ownership records before they make any drastic decisions." "What are you talking about?" "They'll find out at the board meeting next week. Have a good evening." I hung up and went to help Sophie with her dinner. She was having one of her good days, chattering about school and a science project she was working on. Looking at her, I felt more certain than ever about my decision. Later that night, as I was going through some of Gran's old papers, I found a photo I'd never seen before. It showed Gran standing in front of the company building on its opening day, young and proud. On the back, she'd written, "Remember, real strength isn't in following orders. It's in standing up for what's right." My phone lit up with a call from Dad. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what it would say. More guilt, more manipulation, more demands. But for the first time in my life, I felt completely immune to their tactics. The company records would be made public at the board meeting next week. My parents would finally discover that their perfect son wasn't the only one Gran had been watching all these years. She'd seen everything. How they'd enabled Marcus, how they dismissed Sophie's condition, how they tried to control me through money and guilt. And she planned accordingly. I tucked Sophie into bed, kissing her forehead and making sure her medical alert bracelet was secure. "Mom," she whispered as I turned to leave, "are you okay? I heard Aunt Amanda saying mean things today." "I'm perfect, sweetheart," I assured her. "Sometimes standing up for what's right makes people angry, but that doesn't mean you should stop standing." She smiled, already drifting off to sleep. "Like in my science project, every action has an equal and opposite reaction." "Exactly like that," I said softly, turning off her light. "And some reactions are long overdue." The day of the board meeting arrived with a thunderstorm that seemed fitting for the drama about to unfold. I arrived early, watching through the conference room windows as board members filed in, followed by my shell-shocked parents. They received the preliminary documents yesterday, their first hint that something was very wrong. Mom's carefully maintained composure was cracking, and Dad's face had that purple tinge it got when things weren't going his way. Marcus wasn't there, of course. He was probably at home, still expecting everyone to revolve around his needs. Amanda hovered near the door, looking uncertain. She'd been calling me nonstop since yesterday, but I let everything go to voicemail. "Let's begin," I said, taking my place at the head of the table. The position Gran had held for so many years before quietly passing it to me. "This is ridiculous," my father exploded. "These documents must be forged. There's no way your grandmother would have." "Would have what, Dad?" "Seen through your manipulation, protected me and Sophie from your control." Gran watched everything. She saw how you enabled Marcus, how you dismissed Sophie's medical needs, how you used money as a weapon. I pulled out a folder and started distributing copies of Gran's detailed records. Years of documented incidents, Marcus's drug abuse covered up with company money, my parents' financial manipulation, the constant dismissal of Sophie's condition. She kept everything. I continued, watching their faces pale as they read. "Every time you chose Marcus over the company's welfare, every time you used company resources to bail him out. The board members have already reviewed these records." Mom's hands were shaking. "You planned this. You knew about the inheritance when we threatened to cut you off." "Yes," I said simply. "And now you know why I wasn't worried about your threats." The board members, most of whom had known Gran for decades, sat in stony silence. They'd always questioned my parents' decisions to use company funds for Marcus's emergencies, but Gran's position had protected them. Now, with her shares transferred to me, that protection was gone. As of today, I announce I'm implementing new oversight measures. No more using company funds for personal issues. No more covering up Marcus's mistakes. The company will be run as Gran intended, professionally and ethically. "You can't do this to your brother," Dad started, but I cut him off. "Actually, I can. And I'm not doing anything to him. I'm simply stopping you from doing more damage. Marcus needs real help, not endless enablement." Amanda, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "What about Marcus's kidney?" "That's a personal medical issue, not a company matter," I replied. "But since you asked, I've arranged for him to enter a proper rehabilitation program. One that will actually address his addiction instead of covering it up. If he completes it successfully, he'll be eligible for the transplant list with a much better chance of finding a donor." "You had no right," Mom began, but one of the board members interrupted her. "Mrs. Davidson, with all due respect, your daughter has every right. These records show years of mismanagement under the guise of helping your son. It stops now." As the meeting continued, I watched my parents' world crumble, not because I'd taken their money or power, but because for the first time, they couldn't control the narrative. They couldn't make this about Marcus, couldn't twist it into another story of how everyone else should sacrifice for him. After the meeting, Amanda caught up with me in the parking lot. "I've been thinking about Sophie," she said quietly. "Actually thinking, not just dismissing it like Mom and Dad taught us to. I'd like to get to know my niece better, if you'll let me." I studied my sister's face, seeing genuine regret there. "Sunday dinners at my house," I offered. "No Mom and Dad, no Marcus, just us and Sophie. You can help her with her science projects. She'd like that." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "I'd like that too." That evening, I sat with Sophie in our garden, her favorite place for homework. She was working on a new project about ecosystems and balance in nature. "See, Mom?" she explained excitedly, pointing to her diagram. "When one part of the system gets too much attention, everything else suffers. But when there's balance, everything can grow properly." I looked at my daughter, so wise beyond her years, and felt a deep sense of peace. Gran had understood this long ago. That's why she put her plan in motion. Not to punish my parents or Marcus, but to restore balance, to protect what needed protecting. My phone buzzed with messages I knew would be from my parents, probably alternating between threats and pleas. But their words had lost their power over me. I had Sophie to think about, a company to run, and a future to build. one where balance and health mattered more than twisted family obligations. "You're right, sweetheart," I said, helping her color her diagram. "Balance is everything."